Have you ever heard the term free speed when it comes to how fast you're biking? The term describes being able to ride faster without working any harder, and it is for real. Beginner age group triathletes and cyclists, and even a lot of pros I've seen, are guilty of not getting every last bit of speed that they can out of how hard they're working. I once worked with Cameron Worth, the professional cyclist and triathlete who owns multiple bike course records in the biggest races around the world. And he talked a lot about how he doesn't put out the biggest power, but he's able to generate the most speed because he's biking as efficiently as possible. We're going to share the 5 most common things that will allow you to ride even a few miles per hour faster in your races without changing anything about your training or your physical abilities. All of us have more speed available to us, we just need to know how to find it. What's up, motivators? My name is Taren. When ordinary people want to accomplish something extraordinary in endurance sports, they choose unlimited motive training plans at as low as $14.99 a month. You're ready to take on a big challenge? Let's do it. The first place to gain speed, and triathletes, even most pro triathletes, are very guilty of this, is not using the road to your advantage. This was Cameron Worth's biggest thing that he said he did better than any other rider that allowed him to ride faster without putting out insane power. The way that you climb, descend, and take on corners can add minutes to every single race you enter, and with triathletes doing this so poorly, you can gain a big advantage on your competitors if you do this right. Or you'll lose time on every hill and every turn if you choose not to do this. Most triathletes and Grand Fondo riders try to keep a steady effort level throughout their entire race, but this will really hurt you on the hills. Instead of keeping a steady effort level on the uphills, you should work roughly 10 to 15% harder on the uphills to reduce the speed penalty, and then work about 25 to 50% easier on the downhills where you're barely going to lose any speed. Your average power will be about the same, but you'll gain a lot of time over a hilly course. To do this, however, you need to train for these power surges so the climb doesn't zap your legs. So many athletes do their race pace training at only their target race pace. What we do in our training plans is a lot of intervals at efforts and power levels above race pace so that on race day you can have surges like this without cooking your legs. The second thing you need to do to get that little bit more free speed that almost every triathlete doesn't do is how you take corners to hold as much speed as possible. You need to come out of the corners holding as much speed as you were doing before the corner. To do this, you need to take the corners in a certain way that most riders don't think about. You do this by approaching a corner on the wide side of the road, taking the corner at the narrow side of the road, and then exiting at the wide side of the road again. What most people do is they'll start the turn in the middle, take the corner in the middle, and then exit in the middle, making the turn so much sharper, requiring them to slow down quite a bit as they do that turn. By making the corner much less severe, you're going to be able to come out of the corner with so much more speed and not burn as many matches to build up to your race speed. Ride like a good road rider, not like a triathlete or a new roadie, and you can gain as much as 5 to 10 minutes over the people working just as hard of you over the course of a race. The next thing that's really common is a sloppy bike setup, and there are a lot of areas for improvement that altogether will improve your speed by 2 to 4%. The drivetrain is the only thing that transfers the effort you're putting out into the bike going faster. Of course, keeping your drivetrain clean is very important, but so many people don't clean their drivetrain enough, and they don't do it properly. It's also not enough just to have a clean drivetrain. There's so much more to it. An inefficient drivetrain can cause a full 1 to 2% power loss. If you want the power from your legs to transfer to your bike, you need to clean your drivetrain every 2 to 3 weeks or after every really messy ride. This means a full clean with either a chain cleaner or a pressure washer set to a very low setting. Get all of that grease and debris off of the entire drivetrain and re-lube. Don't re-lube with something very, very cheap. Re-lube with something that is a little bit more higher end lube. This is going to keep your drivetrain from getting loose and worn down, and then clean this drivetrain again before your races and feel the G. Next, don't be that person that ruins the aerodynamics of a $5,000 bike with $100 worth of messy accessories. You need to keep your bike setup really clean. Zip tie or electrical tape all of the cables together or onto the bike. Store your water bottles horizontally between your aero bars or in behind the seat and not on your down tube. You can keep them on the down tube for road races. And don't have a loose, flat repair or nutrition pack stored around your bike if it isn't designed aerodynamically. It may seem small or like common sense to have a clean and aerodynamic bike, but very few people do it and lose 2 to 4% of their potential speed. The next thing that you shouldn't do is put out dirty power. 85% of the drag that you have to push through the wind is created by your body, and if that body is moving around a lot or not holding a stable aero position, then you're losing a huge amount of speed. A good example of dirty power is, I love you pal, but Lionel Sanders, who rocks around on the bike a lot with his shoulders and upper body bouncing back and forth. This might feel like you're really getting after it and putting out big power, and you actually are able to put out more power numbers doing this, but there's a lot of energy leakage and that power is making the bike wobble back and forth instead of going fast in a straight line. Something you can do to make sure you're putting out efficient power is look at your shadow when the sun is behind you on a ride. Make sure that your shoulders aren't rocking around and that your body is staying completely still. You can also practice staying still at race pace intervals on Zwift in the aero position, but don't cheat it by holding yourself stiff as a board because that won't transfer to the road. Make sure that you're keeping yourself in your aero position, not looking around and ruining the aerodynamics of your helmet, and not putting power into the bike side to side. Finally, become a rubberhead. Obsess about your tires. The type of tires you use and the amount of pressure you're filling them up to can make a difference of 2 to 4%. I'm not joking here. When I started paying attention to it, I gained a huge amount of free speed. You really should have 2 types of tires. One for training that is more durable and less likely to get a flat, and one for racing that's less durable, but as much as 15 watts, which is a lot of speed, faster. To find tires and compare the differences, you can go to bicyclerollingresistance.com and select your tires. Pro tip, use less tire pressure than you think. The super tight 100 to 120 PSI tires that people used to think were fast were actually found out to be quite slow. Most people should be in the 70 to 90 PSI range, or an even lower 40 to 60 PSI for tubeless road tires. Make all of these changes and you should be able to add 1 to 3 miles per hour over the course of a race without changing your training or your fitness level. It's free speed at its absolute best. You are ready to take on that big challenge motivator, so make sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell to not miss out on any of our weekly training tips designed specifically to help ordinary people accomplish something extraordinary in endurance sports. And finally, click the video on the screen if you want to see our 5 biggest bike setup mistakes that beginner triathletes and cyclists make. It's a little more free speed for you without spending much more money on your bike. Later, motivator.